Very good afternoon or evening, depending on what time you're watching the video. Thanks for clicking on to the Monday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. It is the 29th of July, and we are very quickly approaching the month of August. So we are going to look at the month of August outlook in today's video. So before we continue with the video, hit that like button, share and subscribe if you haven't already done so. That would be much appreciated. There is a lot of hard work going on here in the background to deliver unique, accurate and unbiased, unhyped content here on the channel. Now, yesterday's video was obviously the live stream, and I have actually put out a question. See, if you go into the community section on the channel, I have asked a question, when is the best time for you, the viewer, to watch and interact with the live streams every Sunday at 4 p.m. because there is a regular set of viewers that are tuning in on a Sunday afternoon, but I want to see more people joining in. And I've asked the question, when is the best time between the hours of 12 midday and 4 p.m? When is the best time that suits you in terms of watching the live stream? Because I would like to see a little bit more interaction and more people tuning in if at all possible. So go into the community section on my homepage on YouTube and select when is the best time that suits yourself. I've also added it in on both my Facebook fan page and my Twitter page as well. So I would quite appreciate your involvement with that. So yeah, how has the summer panned out so far based against the prediction that I made at the end of May? So you can see here generally quite a northwest to southeast contrast in the overall thinking, with lower pressure and a mix of warm and cool in the northwest of the continent versus quite a persistent hot dry southeast, but extending back towards Iberia. And I think generally speaking that has been the case. I think it's played out reasonably well. Now obviously the caveat is the finer details always becomes a little bit harder to pinpoint, especially the further out in time you go. So the overall thinking has been based on soil moisture content over Europe, the type of spring we had, even back to the type of winter we had, and the sea surface temperatures and how they have changed over time within the North Atlantic. That has essentially been driving a very, very persistent pattern during the month of June and the month of July, with a cool first half, warmer second half to both months. But I've went on to initially say that rainstorms or flooding, downpours and unusually cool summer days are possible with a lot of fluctuation between low and high pressure. But I think low pressure may win the battle, and that was in the northwest. I think generally speaking that is pretty much been the case. There will be relatively short-lived hot spells, slightly longer and stronger the further south and east over the UK you go. And we've obviously seen that as well. With the direct and indirect influence of the tropics, one cannot rule out an August of two halves, by which I mean the tropical entities lifting north over the Western Atlantic basin can boost high pressure over the UK and Western Europe, leading to a lengthy spell of fine summer weather. But the very same systems can run right around the mid-Atlantic ridge and pay a visit to our shores, bringing unseasonably wet and windy conditions. So August can be a very, very tricky month. You can have heat wave conditions like we've seen in 2003, but you can also see Augusts that are essentially a bit of a washout. So let's pinpoint the months and see what was said for the month of June and July. Because obviously we're ending the month of July, we know what's taking place. After a cool start to the month, it may turn more settled, and overall a mixture of warm spells and cool dry spells for the month. Cool first half and likely warmer second half to the month, possibly wetter as well. Near average to slightly below average temperature and average to below average rainfall for the UK. Now that has been a pretty accurate overall prediction for the month of June. We know that it was a cool first half and warmer second half. July has probably the best shot at the longest and warmest period of summer, so I shall go for a warmer but slightly drier than average overall UK, the maximum being 32 Celsius. The highest so far is 31.9 Celsius, so that would be a pretty good call in terms of the UK maximum. Now, if we break down the month of July in a little bit more detail, there's a couple of things here. The longest and warmest period of summer so far is actually happened. We have seen that, and we are seeing a more consistent, higher pressure, warmer dominated final week to the month of July. So there is an element of accuracy with this, but it's slightly drier. That's not going to be the case. And a slightly warmer than average month is not also going to be the case. It looks as if we're going to actually turn out to be slightly cooler than average. Rainfall wise, it'll probably be a slightly drier north and slightly wetter south of the UK, and even up the eastern side of the UK, it will be a wetter than average. July could see a moderate to severe heat event from Iberia to Turkey. So all in all, I would reckon June has been the best month. July has not been bad at all. Let me know in the comment section below what you think of that. Do you agree with that? Now on to the month of August. Remember, this prediction was made at the end of May. With the tropics becoming more involved, I suspect we have, like June, quite a mixed month with spells of high pressure and low pressure, bringing highly variable weather. Days of warm and sunny interspersed with low pressure, bringing wet and windy, as well as cool days to the UK here. UK maximum being 33 Celsius. And overall, a slightly warmer and wetter than average summer is expected for the UK here. It is, based on modelling, it is going to be the first cooler than average meteorological summer for the UK since 2015, which would be a pretty impressive feat. Now, some models are indicating slightly warmer for the month of August. Some models are actually showing slightly cooler than average. To get 3 straight summer months below average would be pretty rare, actually, in recent times. So I said that the UK, Ireland, France, Low Countries and parts of southern Scandinavia too, with the slightly warmer and wetter, drier and well above average across the south and east of Europe, which I think has also been the case so far. So yeah, generally speaking, I'm actually quite pleased with the overall summer. I think it has been a decent enough call, and we will wait and see what happens with regards to the month of August as we step into it over the next couple of days. So this is the August outlook here. We are going to quickly skim through here some of the factors. I don't want to kind of make it as long-winded, so you can check this out. There is a link in the description below today's video with regards to this, so you can read it at your leisure. I'm not going to necessarily break down too much with regards to what has been. We've kind of covered that in recent times, so I'm going to skip through it. Looks as if, like I say, we are going to see a slightly below average July, despite the heat that we're seeing at the moment across particularly southern areas of the UK. We are going to see a cool July as well as June, which really I have underestimated. One thing that I would say I've underestimated quite a bit is the lack of high pressure. At times I have said that there would be short-lived warm spells and dry spells. Essentially that has been the case, but I've underestimated the level of cool that we've seen. I think with the warmer than average Atlantic and to start the summer off, I thought we were going to see warmer than average temperatures overall. So yeah, but like I said here, this is the idea for the overall meteorological summer. I think you'll agree, a decent call thus far. While I believe lower pressure dominates the northwest and region in the south and southeast, I underestimated the lack of high pressure episodes and consequential warmth associated with those. This summer's warmth likely constitutes about 1 to 1.5 weeks out of a possible 6 so far. So in terms of heat, we've seen 1 week with essentially heat, not completely 1 week as a whole, but generally when you incorporate the month of June and July combined, that's probably been the equivalent of about 1.5 weeks at best out of a possible 6 so far. That is quite a lack of heat, really, when you factor in that period of time. So from my perspective, the Atlantic has run the show so far in terms of the upper pattern and aided by the Eastern Europe drought. But where do we go into the month of August? So August, a repeat of June and July. Let's wait and see. Did you notice at the very end of the sea surface temperature animation? So let's go back to that and look at the animation. This is over a 90-day period. And you can see here the warming of the North Atlantic. And you can see the cooling just to the west. So we've got an increase in warming through the period as we just to the east of Newfoundland. Notice that here, this build-up of warmth to the south of Greenland, east of Newfoundland, and the cooling to the west of the UK and Ireland. But notice at the very end of the loop, we start to see the shrinking of that cool pool to the west of Ireland here. Does that have any significance as we move into the month of August? That is going to be the question. So that's that. Let's have a look and see here. Just bear with me a second, everybody. So that's that. Let's go back here. This, by the way, was my July idea. This was published at the end of June, with high pressure over the north, both in the North Pacific and the North Atlantic, over that warm waters. And that has been the case. If you look at this article, you can see the 500 millibar pattern for June and July. That persistent high sitting right over that anomalous warm pool to the south of Greenland, east of Canada, with a west and northwesterly flow east of that high over the UK and Ireland, essentially keeping us on the cool side of things. So, like I said, did you notice at the very end of the animation, slight filling of the cool pool west of Ireland, and also have you noticed the westward shift in the ridge over Europe? So as we've progressed through the last week to 10 days, we've seen the high moving from the Balkans westwards towards Iberia, possibly in association with a strengthening of the West African monsoon, the intertropical convergence zone lifting further north. Sometimes that relates to strengthening the high pressure to the north of that, helping pull the main ridge to the west. As we head into August, the ITCZ, or intertropical convergence zone, and subtropical ridge will naturally be at their most northerly position. We know the tropics will come alive again, helped by an eastward propagation of the MJO. And if we look at this, and we'll look at this in the live stream yesterday, that eastward shift in greens representing a rising motion within the atmosphere. Through the majority of July, it has been in the brown, not brown, yellowy red colours, showing sinking in the atmosphere. That has been driving the downward trend in the Atlantic basin as expected. But as we move into the month and through the month of August, we are going to see that pulse move back into the Atlantic basin. So therefore, we are likely to see the Atlantic basin turning active. So therefore, I expect two outcomes with that eastward propagation of the MJO, both of which may occur. A possible eastward extension of the ridge over the North Atlantic, extending into the UK, would provide more warm and dry conditions over the UK and Ireland generally. So that high over the North Atlantic, extending a little bit further east, incorporating the UK and Ireland, would settle things down and warm things up. That is a possibility. The strengthening of the Iberia high exerting greater influence to the north over the UK and Ireland compared to the June and July period. We're kind of seeing that now taking place. We're seeing this little change in the atmosphere. Number two, so that's one aspect, eastward extension of the ridge from the Atlantic into the UK and Ireland, with the heights rising and the heat building over Iberia, generally settles things down, warms things up, dries things out. The second possibility is tropical cyclone development and interaction with the mid-latitude flow. Where do they go? That's the question mark. One, towards the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico, or do they find a weakness in the Bermuda Azores ridge or around the western flank of the ridge, up the eastern side of the United States, and recurving These are important factors to consider. So in other words, tropical systems developing within the Atlantic basin and possibly finding a weakness either in between two ridge cells or around the western side of the ridge. That can have significant impacts on the UK and Ireland, Western Europe pattern. As these systems recurve, they can do one of two things: boost pressure over the UK and Ireland, delivering hot, dry conditions, or they can actually go all the way around the high and find a path into the UK and Ireland and providing low pressure, cyclonic conditions, wind, rain, cool conditions. That is another aspect. And this is the reason why the tropics are becoming more of a complicating factor going into the month of August and into September as well, is the tropics come alive naturally, climatology, but also can have greater influence on the middle latitude pattern. So there is a big question mark with regards to the month of August, and we're going to have to wait and see what takes place. There are several different scenarios that may unfold. So let's go on and see. As we move to the end of July, warm to hot conditions are residing over the southeast UK, less so over Scotland and Northern Ireland. But the GFS ensemble has a trough swinging back over the northwest of Europe through week 1 and 2 of August. The return of the original pattern, this rinse-repeat cycle. So this is the latest run of the GFS ensemble for the upcoming 6 to 10 day. Now the 1 to 5 day has more origin over the UK and warmer conditions, with cooling the further north you go over the British Isles. But this is the period between the 2nd of August and the 7th of August, showing low pressure and disappointing conditions to start the month. Then as we move into the 6 to 10, low pressure again controlling the UK and Ireland and Northwest Europe pattern. This is even extending towards the middle portions of the month. The GFS ensemble still has low pressure dominating the pattern. So again, like June, like July, a cool first half to August is seen by the model. This would be the temperature anomalies for the days 6 through 10, the 11 to 15, below average. That would be quite something given what we've seen so far. An amazing stretch of sameness, which enters its third, if not fourth, straight month. What about the CFSV2? This is an upcoming 7-day period here. Region dominates the end of July and the first couple of days of August. But then similar, not necessarily as deep, but similar with the CFSV2 as the GFS ensemble. We've got low pressure further north, higher pressure a little bit more present over the southern UK and Ireland. If you notice here, this is the period between the 11th and the 18th. Again, low pressure near Iceland, higher pressure extending more across the UK and Ireland. So therefore, the CFSV2 for week 1 has a cool north and fairly hot south. Into the 8 to 14 day, you see here that we've got some warm still clinging to the south, but the majority of the UK and Ireland is actually below average for the period 4th through 11th. Then as we skip on to the day 15 through 21, which is the 11th through the 18th of August, you can see here a distinctly cool north central UK, slightly warmer across the far south of Wales, and really extended from the Midlands to the south. And the majority of mainland Europe is warmer than average. So cool first half, warmer second half. Well, that's been the story for both June and July, so why not August? I expect a warmer second half of the month, but potentially a hot spell for most, if not all, of the UK and Ireland, with tropical forcing involved. So that is the ideas that I'm kind of leaning towards. A kind of cooler, slightly wetter possible north, warmer, drier across the south. This would likely be the best of all three meteorological summer months of 2024. When looking at the month as a whole, the GFS extended shows much of the same. A flat zonal Atlantic flow with low to the north near Iceland, ridge to the south, England, possibly Wales, always favouring warmer, drier than what we would see in Scotland and Northern Ireland. So this is the 30-day period of the GFS extended model here. So let's zoom in so you can see it a little bit clearer. and a fairly flat flow with low pressure dominating to the north, higher pressure to the south here. Generally, our winds coming in off the Atlantic here, but we have got more influence of higher pressure over the UK and Ireland. So this would suggest quite a dry outlook overall across the majority of Europe, but as well as that across the UK and Ireland here. This is the 30-day temperature anomaly seen by the same model GFS extended. You can see here a largely cooler or close to average across the south, with a slightly warmer than average between London and Cambridge, if you notice here. But generally, based on this, the majority of the UK as well as Ireland would see a below average August. So let's finalize this here and see the outcome, and then I'll show you a couple of other models here thrown in for good measure. The latest run of the ECM 30-day shows similar flat zonal flow with slightly higher heights covering more of the UK. This would allow for a slightly warmer and drier August overall. So to summarise, I expect average to slightly above average for August in terms of temperature, and slightly drier than average across the UK and Ireland as a whole. Slightly cooler, possibly wetter Scotland and Northern Ireland, Northwest Republic of Ireland as well, while drier across England and Wales. A hot, dry month for most of Europe. So there you go. I think we're going to lean towards that low pressure near Iceland, having more unsettled conditions and slightly cooler conditions across the north and northwest. Always closer to higher pressure across England and Wales here. So an average to slightly above average temperature across the UK and Ireland as a whole, with wetter conditions and cooler the further north and west you go over the British Isles here. The majority of mainland Europe will see warmer and drier than average. So let's round up here, because I've obviously spoken for long enough already here. But let's have a look and see what the ECMWF extended is showing here. A little bit hard to see, I do appreciate that. But you can see here for the upper heights for the next 30 days, 20th of July through the 27th of August. You can see here that we've generally got above average heights incorporating the UK and Ireland here. Again, you follow the lines of equal pressure. It's showing generally westerly flow into the British Isles and Ireland here. So that kind of backs up the overall thinking. Looking specifically at Europe here for the 30-day period, you can actually see a trough over the northeast of the continent, strongest high pressure over the southwest of the continent here. This is the precipitation for the same 30-day period of the ECM extended, largely drier than average across Central and Southern Europe, including the UK and Ireland, slightly wetter than average further north over Scandinavia here. Temperature anomaly-wise, this is how the month is looking, and it's showing a cool north, slightly warmer south of the UK, average across Ireland and Northern Ireland here. So there you go. Interesting stuff. This is the CFSV2 week 1. You can see here that we have a deep negative to the northwest, strong ridge over the near continent here, and a hot overall scenario. Into week 2, this is the 5th through the 12th. You see here that low to the north. You can see the overall model agreement in this. Higher pressure over the further south over the UK and Ireland, lower pressure further north here. Cool north, dry and warm south. And you can see here, I think that the majority of the UK is going to have a drier than average August, if I'm being honest. This is possibly factoring in the tropics, but possibly not. This is likely to change if we start to see the tropics waking up as expected and we see systems moving to the north. So what do you think? Hopefully this month will be better than June and July. Warmest and driest compared to average. And we will wait and see what happens here. Let me know in the comment section below what you've thought of today's video. Hit that like button, share with your friends and family, and please subscribe to the channel if you have not already done so. Plenty of reason to stick around. We're going to have a look at the tropics, the Indian monsoon, the Southeast Asia monsoon, how it's been so far this year, and we'll also be looking at the global tropics as well as the Atlantic in the coming days to come. So plenty of reason to stick around. See you again tomorrow with more. Bye for now.